Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on an invisible, high-stakes balancing act that's happening inside your body right now. It is a chemical tightrope walk so incredibly precise that even a tiny misstep could be a disaster. And yet, your body pulls it off flawlessly every single second of your life. Okay, just look at this. To get what we're talking about, imagine your body is a tightrope walker. This tiny pH range you see here, that's the rope. If you stray even a little bit outside of that 7.35 to 7.45 window, critical, life-sustaining functions just start to shut down. It is an unbelievably fine line between being healthy and being in crisis.
So that's the million-dollar question, right? How on earth does your body manage to stay on this razor's edge? Well, let's dive into the absolutely brilliant systems that work 24/7 to maintain this delicate, life-sustaining balance.
First things first, let's really get a handle on the stakes here and just how ridiculously precise this whole balancing act really is. So, what is pH anyway? You've probably heard the term, but it's just a measure of how much acid, we're talking hydrogen ions, is floating around in a solution. And for your blood, if that pH dips below 7.35, that's a state called acidosis. If it climbs above 7.45, it's called alkalosis. And trust me, both of them are serious trouble. To really put this into perspective, just look at this chart for a second. We've got a super common ion, like sodium, clocking in at around 140 millimoles per liter. Now compare that to the hydrogen ion, the thing that actually determines our acidity. It's just a teeny tiny fraction of that. This really shows you how incredibly sensitive our body is to even the most minuscule change in acid level. And why is this control so vital? Well, because when the pH goes off, the whole system starts to go haywire. The very proteins that make up our body's structure start to warp and lose their shape. The enzymes that power our metabolism just grind to a halt. Hormones can't dock with their receptors to deliver messages, and our entire electrolyte balance gets thrown completely out of whack. It's a massive domino effect. Okay, so here's the thing. Our bodies are constantly making acid, just through the normal process of living. So to deal with that, we have this super sophisticated defense team that's always on call to manage it. You know, just by eating food and turning it into energy, you're creating acid. It's like a constant crosswind that's always trying to push our tightrope walker off balance. The body can't just let this acid load build up. It has to fight back, actively and constantly. So how does it fight back? Well, it's got this amazing two-tiered defense team. The first line of defense is the chemical buffer system. Think of them as the first responders, instant shock absorbers. But the second and even more powerful line is our physiological buffers, the lungs and the kidneys. Let's start with the rapid response team, the lungs. All right, let's talk about the first of our big physiological buffers and see how it provides a super quick fix when things start to go a little sideways. This is actually a pretty genius solution. When carbon dioxide, or CO2, dissolves in your blood, it forms a weak acid. So if your blood starts getting too acidic, your lungs can literally just breathe out the problem by getting rid of more CO2. Simple as that. So here's how it works. Your red blood cells are like little taxis, shuttling CO2 from all your tissues to your lungs. Once they get there, they release the CO2 and you breathe it out. But get this. How do the lungs know when to breathe faster or slower? Well, there are these amazing sensors in your brain that are constantly monitoring your blood's pH. If they sense even a tiny uptick in acid, they fire off an urgent message telling you to breathe faster and deeper. It's an incredibly fast and powerful response that can kick in within minutes. Now, while the lungs are lightning fast, they're kind of a short-term fix. For the long game, the body calls in the ultimate master regulators, the kidneys. Yeah, the kidneys are the deliberate, powerful strategists. They don't just blow off acid like the lungs. They meticulously manage it over hours, even days. And they have three main tricks up their sleeve. First, they can just dump excess acid directly into your urine. Second, they can reclaim this crucial acid neutralizer called bicarbonate, pulling it back into the blood. And third, if the supply of bicarbonate is running low, they can even manufacture new stuff from scratch. Pretty amazing. And here is just a tiny glimpse of that elegant machinery in action. We're looking at a single cell inside the kidney, and what it's doing is actively pulling bicarbonate, that's our main acid buffer, out of the fluid that's about to become urine and recycling it right back into the blood. It's this masterful process that makes sure our first line of chemical defense is always topped up and ready to go. Okay,
So we've got this incredibly robust system, but it's not foolproof. So what happens when one of our defense systems fails? What happens when that tightrope walker finally starts to fall?
This is when we get into the 4 main acid-base disorders. It's pretty straightforward. They're defined first by where the problem started. Was it the lungs, making it a respiratory issue, or was it something with the body's metabolism and the kidneys? And second, what was the result? Too much acid, which is acidosis, or too much base, which is alkalosis. And as the body's chemistry gets thrown off kilter, you can actually see the effects in the symptoms. Remember how a bad pH messes with proteins and enzymes? Well, in acidosis, that can show up as fatigue or confusion as your brain and body just slow down. On the flip side, in alkalosis, the nervous system gets all overexcited, leading to things like muscle spasms and numbness. It's a direct window into just how deeply pH affects everything we do.
So I think the real takeaway here is just the sheer elegance and the mind-boggling precision of this whole automatic system. That tightrope walker inside you isn't just performing for a few minutes. It is a constant, perfect routine, happening every single second of every day, all without you ever having to think about it once.
And it really just makes you stop and wonder, doesn't it? What other invisible miracles are playing out inside our bodies right now? What other complex symphonies are being perfectly conducted, all just to keep us going, every single day?